Why does it sometimes feel so awkward when people ask for donations? Maybe it's because you want to be generous, but just not in the way they think you should be. That's what this person finds when they encounter a former co-worker in a store. What awkward request does the co-worker make? Our fan-submitted story. When things start to go missing, these house owners have to figure out who is to blame and how to get their stuff back. A choosing beggar is planning an epic event, except that they want to get the staff and supplies for free. How does this bartender respond? You'll only find out by watching this episode of VoiceyHere's Choosing Beggars. This story was called Ex-Coworker Yells at Me in an Aldi's bagging station to give him money after I already donated. Some backstory. This took place 2018. Every year in May, my workplace throws a party for the teachers and staff to commemorate the end of the school year. We usually say our goodbyes, then go get lost another 2 months before returning in August. Well, a math teacher whom I was acquainted with, let's call him John, said he wasn't returning. This wasn't devastating news, nor was it surprising. Teachers shift in and out of schools all the time, and John would be transferring to another school in the district, so I would probably see him at board meetings now and then anyways. What shocked me more was the reason he was leaving. His mum was in hospital with cancer, and he was leaving to teach part-time so he could take care of his mum more. As far as I know, his dad passed away, and he only has one sibling who lives in Belize. John, some other teachers, and I chat for a while. He tells us about his financial trouble, how the insurance isn't covering as much as they thought they would, how he worried for his mum, etc. We all feel pretty bad for him, and he isn't a complete stranger, so we decide to pitch in what we could to help pay for his mum's treatment. I give him about $80. The day ends, summer comes, and he's transferred out of my school. I see him later in August at a district training, but I don't talk to him. Sometimes I hear about him from another teacher, but the news is all the same. So fast forward to just Tuesday evening. I'm at Aldi's when I run into him. At first, it was quite pleasant to see him again after so long. I asked him how he was doing, how his mum was. He said her treatment was going along, but the bills have been through the roof. He switches the conversation and thanks me for the money I gave him back in May. He says, if it wasn't for you and the other teachers' generosity, then I may be thousands more in debt. He said it was really helpful. He's eternally grateful, stuff like that. And then suddenly he asks, by chance, can you donate any more money to my mum? I stutter and say maybe I can do $5 or whatever I have left in my wallet after checking out. He says, okay. I have about $60 of groceries in my shopping cart, and we're walking to the checkout line together. As I'm putting the items on the conveyor belt, he points to some items and says, oh, do you really need that though? I laugh it off and continue putting items on the conveyor belt. He says it again. He mentions the ground beef I bought is $10, which is $10 that can go to his mum. At this point, I'm uncomfortable, and I try to tell him in a friendly manner that I have to eat too. He says something along the lines of, how I can skimp out on meat for just 1 week, right? I tell him that my wife will be mad if I don't get what's on the grocery list. As he's paying for his groceries, he notices the cashback option and mentions it to me. He says, you can just withdraw money, right? I ignore him and check out my food after him, but I pay with cash so I don't get the cashback option. As we're in the bagging area, he decides to basically go all out and just straight up tells me to give him money. My mum is sick in hospital. I need this money to pay off the debts, he frantically shouts. I give him about $6, all that was left in my wallet at the time. He accuses me of having more. He calls me a bad person for withholding money from a charitable cause. He says my salary is high, that I make nearly 3 times as much as he does, and that I probably have a large disposable income, in which I throw away dollars for all sorts of other reasons. I tell him it's not my fault I make more than him, and that I already gave him a ton of money. He yells even louder, which grabs the attention of many people in the checkout bagging area. He says I'm basically killing his mother because I won't help pay for her treatment. I tell him, while it's uncomfortable that his mum contracted the disease by chance, it's not my job to pay her medical bills, especially if she won't pay mine, and that he shouldn't be harassing other people for money. Well, guess what he does? He just harasses me even harder, shouting all he wants is another $80. After a good whole minute of him just spouting bullcrap out out of his mouth non-stop. The cashier tells us that we have to shut up, leave, or that she'll call the police. I take my cart and go outside. He goes after me, to which I straight up grab all the bags in my cart and run to my car. My arms were strained because I'm weak, and I was probably carrying 100 pounds on each arm, but I managed to throw it in the back seat and drive away before he says another word. I think what's sad about this story is that it reminds us about the reality of scarcity. We don't live in a perfect world, and as wonderful as it would be to have every single human need treated for every single human person at the highest quality, it's unfortunately just not possible. The hero of this story had already donated money to help this person's mother, and yet they wanted more. Were they considering the fact that his income is a limited resource? Some of that needs to go to his own family in case of emergency. Not to mention all the non-medical needs that he and his family have. Besides his own family's needs, there might be other people or causes that he believes his money should go to. Perhaps he believes that another $80 instead of going to this person's mother would be better spent going to a third world country where it could help even more people. That's why I don't think there's necessarily any right or wrong answer here. It would have been a good thing if he donated another $80 to this man's mother. It would have been a good thing if he held it to be responsible for his own family. It also would have been good if he found another cause for the money to go towards. In either of these cases, the most important thing is that he voluntarily chooses where he thinks the money is best spent, instead of this choosing beggar forcing to give it to him. This story was called How a Choosing Beggar Busted Herself. This happened several years ago, when an acquaintance liked to pull ridiculous crap on others. Eventually, she got busted. The group I hung out with would meet regularly at a restaurant. Choosing Beggar used to be part of that group until she stopped paying dues, so she no longer received meeting notices. However, she got around that by calling the restaurant until she learned when we made dinner reservations in the restaurant's meeting room. The first time she showed up, we couldn't really object to her being there because it's a public restaurant. After she ordered the most expensive meal on the menu, she excused herself, saying she had an appointment. We thought she paid for her meal on her way out. At the end of our meeting, as we were settling our group tab, we discovered that the choosing beggar stiffed us. We were forced to pay for her meal that night, after she was long gone. We were irritated, to say the least. The next time we had dinner reservations at this restaurant, we arranged to have separate orders instead of a group tab. Lo and behold, choosing beggar shows up, and again, orders the most expensive meal on the menu. When she was informed there are separate checks instead of the group tab, she had the most sour expression on her face. Too bad. When she finished eating, she told us she would be back in a few, as she needed to answer nature's call. That few stretched out to where we started worrying that she might have taken ill. It has happened to me. A friend and I go to check and discover that the restroom is empty. I asked a restaurant staff person if she had seen choosing beggar and described what she was wearing. The staff person informed us that she saw choosing beggar leave. She had pulled a dine and dash. Once again, we were stuck with her expensive tab. This time, we were livid. The third time she showed up, we were prepared. She did her usual of showing up uninvited, ordering the most expensive meal again, and then attempted to leave again after she finished eating. This time, we blocked the door. She got told she was going nowhere until she coughed up the money for what she ate. The excuses she tried to hand us were stupid. She's entitled because she's a founding member. No pay up. But she didn't bring any money. Too bad. We're not paying for her again. She started literally begging and got turned down flat. I had already paid my tab and was getting ready to head on home when choosing beggar got in my face, begging me to feel sorry for her, etc. She tells me that if I pay for her meal, she'll pay me back later. Yeah, right. I pointed out to her that she knew she was coming to a restaurant that charges for their meals. She knew that each member pays for their own meals. She has no excuse for showing up with an empty wallet for the third time in a row, expecting us to always pay her way, and I am not paying since she had made no effort to reimburse the group for her previous instances of dine and dash. I called her a liar and a thief to her face. She's panicking, and asking what is she going to do, as she has no money. I told her to throw herself on the mercy of the restaurant and hope they don't call the cops on her for theft of services and food. I walked out while she continued to stand there and panic. I don't know how the restaurant dealt with her. Choosing Beggar never showed her face again after that. The entitlement mentality of living at the expense of others is not uncommon. This is just one example where we see it. It's human nature to want to do as little work as possible, but receive as much reward as possible. But there are virtuous and not so virtuous ways in which to express that. For example, under-consuming and overproducing early in your life so that you can retire at an earlier age is one example of expressing that nature we have. The other form is the form we see in this story. Rather than living at the expense of your present self so that your future self can benefit, these people try to live at the expense of you, and they'll use any means, directly or indirectly, to take your wealth to do it. This fan-submitted story was called We Don't Like You, but sure, invite yourself to our wedding. In the story we have the Choosing Beggars male and female, father-in-law and husband. This story starts with my wonderful, naive, kind, unconfrontational father-in-law trying to do something kind for our neighbors at the time. The neighbors, Choosing Beggar male and female, were nice enough to him so long as he was doing stuff for them, like letting CBM park his motorcycle in my father-in-law's garage for over 2 years. Cool. He finally gets rid of the bike, but doesn't give back the garage door clicker. Father-in-law met up with his high school crush and moved back to the UK to be with her. They're adorable, but that's another story. And asked husband and I to fix up and sell the house. First thing, we need the clicker back. We got contractors coming in. Besides that, it isn't his. Knock on his door and find our tools all over his house. What? Plumbing, electrical, yard, you name it, it's ours and at their place. We know it's ours by the fact that our obscure last name is largely and clearly printed on the tools. More confused than angry at this point, we just ask for them back. Father-in-law said I could use them. Well, he's not here anymore, and we need to get them back to our house, husband replied. After some whining, we got a small amount of our stuff back, but no clicker. When they leave the house, husband and I regularly go next door to siphon our stuff back. Since it's just sitting outside, it starts to slowly creep back next door. We had put the stuff in the garage, so he clearly still had the garage door clicker. We were completely redoing the house. So that's cool, keep the clicker. We'll just get a new garage door unit. It's quiet a few weeks on the CB front when we get a knock on the door. It's CBM. He wants access to the new garage doors. Husband just laughs at him. Why? Well, you have our tools, CBM whined. Our tools? That you stole? Husband retorted. Father-in-law said we could use them. You're right. Father-in-law did, for that day, not have them live in your house. However, father-in-law doesn't live here anymore. I do, and I don't want you skulking around my property. We keep all the doors closed and locked. Good day. At this point, CBM actually went and whined to father-in-law in the UK. Father-in-law told husband he didn't want to deal with it. We didn't really speak with CBM for a while, but then CBF found out we were getting married. He wasn't my husband at the time, he was my fiancé. After months of not speaking with them, CBF invites herself and CBM to our wedding. I was so blown away by her audacity that I couldn't say no, just for an extra little fun flavor. CBM groped my best friend during the wedding. Luckily she's cool as heck and laughed it off. I didn't know until much later, or I would have physically ejected them myself. She's amazing, and she knew I'd lose my temper, so she kept CBM's disgusting behavior to herself until much later. For the end of the story, we sold the house to some truly awful people. I feel bad for the house because it was beautiful by the time we were finished with it, but those two couple deserved each other. You know, I've never thought about that as a way of getting back at a terrible neighbor, is that when you sell the place or you only move when you found the most terrible people possible, so that now you know that your neighbors are gonna have to outcompete each other for who's worse. That's something that I think we haven't really explored in the stories yet. What happens when two choosing beggars collide? Is there a sense of potency of choosing beggarness, and one can overpower the other? Or do they both sort of self-destruct and then just turn their other ways? Maybe they can sense other choosing beggars and they're like, well, I'm not gonna get anything here. Let's just go find some normal people to harass. This story was called You want money? Being invited to my party should be enough. So I'm part of a small team of bartenders, doing catering for private events, which really brings out the beggars in people. One of our products is an open full bar, paid by the hour. This includes beers, wines, cocktails, everything. We bring our own ingredients, tools, and bartenders. The Christmas New Year season is always crazy busy, and the following exchange happened this weekend. This is translated into English, so it's not exactly how it went.
Hey there, the previous customer recommended you guys. I'm hosting a New Year's party, and I'd like the open full bar from 8 PM to 2 AM.
Alright, I have some available bartenders. How many people are we talking?
We'll be 32, but some probably won't drink that much.
We can handle 32, no problem. 8 hours of open full bar for 32 and a bartender will be around $5,120. Let me know if there will be sober people so I can adjust the price.
$5,120? Are you crazy? Your website said $20 an hour. It's only 8 hours, so it should be $160.
I'm sorry about the confusion. The price is per hour per person.
Well, your website says $160, so do it for $160.
I'm sorry, but that's not what our website says. $160 would not even cover the bartender's wage, let alone the supplies needed for 32 people.
Come on, man. I already promised that there would be professional bartenders, and I don't have that kind of money.
Again, I'm sorry, but the price is firm. There is no way I can supply a party of that size with $160 worth of alcohol.
What if I buy the booze myself?
Then we can definitely work something out. A single bartender for 8 hours will be $400, prep time included. I can send you a shopping list with the approximate amounts of beers, wines, spirits, and mixes.
What? How is that fair? I buy all the booze and you still want money?
Well, yeah, we don't work for free.
But I'm already paying for the booze. What if I let the bartender drink from my booze and tip him well?
We don't work for free. Booze is not money, and neither is the promise of tips. We're professionals with a lot of experience, and this doesn't come cheap.
Is money really all you care about? My party will be the craziest in the city, and you should be grateful to even be invited.
Well, hired staff generally isn't considered to be invited, and I can assure you, none of us would cry over missing your party. We're bartenders. Our life is a party.
Freak off, you ungrateful jerk. $160, take it or leave it. I'm not giving you people a single cent more than that.
Keep your money and have a happy New Year's party. Yeah, if they're providing all the booze, then shouldn't somebody just work for you for free, right? That makes sense. This is a line that always comes up with Choosing Beggars. Is money all you really care about? It's so self-evident that they're projecting here, because that's obviously the only thing they care about. They're trying to be as cheap as possible, so it is the only thing that they actually care about. If they didn't care about money, they would just pay the price. So they have to project and pretend like, oh, that's what everyone else only cares about, is just money. The reason that property, like the alcohol you have to buy, is actually worth something is because it took planning and labor to actually produce it. So the labor of the bartender is also worth something and deserves to be paid. It's pretty simple, but greedy people will always want something else for free. If you'd like your story to be narrated by me, don't forget to visit the subreddit r/VoiceyHere, link below. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you'd like to see more. Alright, I'll see you in the next one.